everybody. Welcome to our webinar today, Transforming Your Warehouse with riteSCAN and SYSPRO. I'm Elizabeth Ingram from BT Partners, and we appreciate everybody joining us today. Just a couple of first I want to give you a little background on BT Partners' relationship with the great team at RiteSoft. We have been a partner with RiteSoft for many years. They are a great partner. It's a great product. Their support is fantastic. Their team is fantastic. We have many customers using their products very successfully, very happily. So we're thrilled today to present this to you. Just to let everybody know, you'll be in listen-only mode, but you can put questions in the question part. We'll also be opening it up for questions at the end. And anybody who would like to take a deeper dive into the product or would like pricing or more information, we'll be reaching out to you after the webinar just to see if you need anything, but also feel free to reach out to me at any time, and I'll be happy to get that coordinated for you. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Garrett Lenzen from RiteSoft, and we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone again for taking the time to meet with us, and thank you, Elizabeth, for that great introduction. It's really great to be working here today with BT Partners. Again, long-standing relationship, and it's been a true joy of RiteSoft to be partnering with BT to provide solutions into that customer base and ultimately help those customers win with these different solutions of SYSPRO and riteSCAN. Before we really get into the meat and potatoes of today's webinar, we have a couple polls that we're going to go through just to help understand, what different challenges are manufacturers or customers facing out there today. So poll number one is going to be some of the business challenges that you're facing. So which of the following business challenges are you planning to address within the next 6 to 12 months? So we'll launch that poll here. And we'll give everyone a minute to go through and apply their answers. All right, got some data coming in here. So a lot of it is really focusing so far just around the inventory and warehouse visibility and having a little bit more reporting against what's actually happening. Labor efficiency is one as well that we're seeing being popular so far in this poll. And then order picking accuracy. Obviously, that's a big one, and making sure our orders are correct. So we'll just give it a minute so far, and if there's anything else that pops in. All right. Okay, fantastic. All right, yeah, so the most common answer was definitely the inventory and warehouse and visibility and reporting. So getting that visibility into what's actually happening out there on the floor and understanding those different transactions that might be happening by specific users. So moving on to the next poll that we have today is going to be warehouse operations. What specific warehouse operation would you like to improve on within those next 12 months? So we'll launch that next poll. Right. Should see that poll now. And we'll give everyone a minute. All right, so we're seeing a little bit of a common theme with the warehouse visibility and reporting. So that's a popular one so far today. Another one that's quite common is the work in progress and just in general production tracking. So it's really nice to see some of this information and where it ultimately ties into some of the challenge that we see. So continue to let some of this go, and then we'll continue on. Right, fantastic. So, yeah, some of the most common ones, again, is still that reporting, being able to see the inventory movements of what's actually happening. So, a lot of really, really good feedback there. And it's again, nice to understand what challenges or where are we looking to attack going into the year. And hopefully today I'll explain it, how riteSCAN can help you attack those different challenges that you might have. All right. So just to kick things off here from really a riteSCAN perspective, and we want to identify what exactly is riteSCAN. How is this ultimately going to help you? Now, you might have heard of riteSCAN in the past, but a lot has changed over the last 24 months to 3 years. At the end of the day, riteSCAN is a simple plug and play mobile warehouse management system for SYSPRO, and it's specific to SYSPRO. SYSPRO is that only ERP system that riteSCAN works with, which provides you with a lot of information or a lot of tight integration to your ERP. Now, it is ultimately designed to seamlessly automate those warehouse, inventory, and manufacturing processes in real time, right where the transaction occurs, by typical methods of barcode scanning. Now, one of the big things that I always like to preach or say as you go through a project like this is you really want to start with barcode scanning is going to create that accuracy by doing the same process physically as you are systematically. And that's where your inventory accuracy is really going to come from. Now, riteSCAN is also a simple step to that barcode scanning and warehouse automation without some of the complexity and high price tags of a true full tier 1 WMS solution. Because riteSCAN is plug and play, it's built off of those SYSPRO best practices and industry best practices to encompass and streamline all workflows that any organization might have. Now, more importantly, we've ultimately built riteSCAN from the ground up to bring you the new riteSCAN, which is riteSCAN 8, to help you unleash that power of mobility and help you transition to paper workflows. Now, riteSCAN 8's new web-based product design gives you access to streamlined workflows, more setup options, and ultimately new functionality to improve accuracy, plus dashboards, reports, to deliver that real-time visibility to see what's actually happening in the warehouse. Not only that, but riteSCAN delivers that true device flexibility. It runs on any handheld device with a browser. So we're really hitting on those three things of accuracy, being as accurate with our inventory as possible, being fast and efficient by an employee, being able to do things fast and efficiently on the floor, and then that visibility of getting to see from a leadership or management perspective what is actually happening out there on the floor and bringing that information back to me to help make more effective decisions. All right. Now, the big thing is the seamless integration. And what does that ultimately deliver to you as a user? Now, we are a certified ISV with SYSPRO, which is really a big thing because it provides us with that certification of how we work with SYSPRO from a product and from an organization perspective. Now, more focused on the product, it really allows for having a embedded runtime license with SYSPRO, which means everything is real-time back and forth from SYSPRO. Now, I always like to say riteSCAN is a simple, seamless extension of SYSPRO to the floor, really focused on that end user. So now, how does someone truly benefit from a tight integration? Not only does it give you real-time data accessibility and inventory updates to create that visibility of what's happening with inventory, it also helps ensure ongoing compatibility. So if you started on SYSPRO 6.1, SYSPRO 7, SYSPRO 8, and any of those future SYSPRO versions, it's going to help you easily migrate into newer releases and maintain that compatibility all the way into the future. The best thing about the riteSCAN and SYSPRO integration is it does not take up any SYSPRO user seats. So it is truly acting as SYSPRO, just as an easy to use method out there on the floor. Now let's dig in and talk even more about some of the latest enhancements that we have made to riteSCAN over the last few months. Now, ultimately, some of the new things that have been released within riteSCAN, and some of these you will see me go through today throughout the demonstration. And if you don't see it, always happy to set up a follow-up time to go through and provide you with that demonstration. So some of the key big areas, and ultimately, why did we develop some of these? One of the big ones is the order management. Orders are becoming a higher volume in almost every single facility that you work with. Be able to provide the ability to assign and manage orders to different users out there on the floor is ultimately the goal of order management. And that's going to provide you as a user of the system the ability to assign that sales order, but whether if it's a single sales order or multiple sales order to any given user out there on the floor. So that way they can easily go through and facilitate their picking process. Along with that comes the simplified directed picking, giving the user suggestions on what they can go and pick and where they should be picking it from. This is going to be extremely useful when you're in the multiple bin SYSPRO environment. And if you're using lots or serials, providing that user, here's what I would like you to pick based on certain criteria. Now take it even further to the batch picking of orders, and even in production, being able to go through and batch those orders even for a job and say, I want you to go out and pick these specific materials for this job and start that assignment process. So that way you as a user have the visibility into who is supposed to be doing what within our facility. Now, to wrap that up, it really comes into the document printing. It's hard to get away from paper. Everyone says that. So what tools within these order management, simplified picking, and batching helps you get away from that paper process, but there's still paper that's required, such as pack slips, bills of lading, or even a work order document. Those are still able to be printed out of riteSCAN and be provided to that user to help give them some more context of what else they should be doing with this process. Now, a couple of really, really cool new features that are coming out is the task assignments and work to list. So being able to assign specific functions within this program for a user to go and do and say, I want you to go do this replenishment. I want you to do this PO receipt. And that's identified within the system of this is what you should be doing. Here's your tasks to work through in any given day or time. And then also being able to
can you kind of talk about the task management and how it actually relates to the core modules of like movements as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big things that you might see, especially in those multiple bin environments, it really targets to the replenishment aspects. You have a lot of overstock that might be at the top of the rack, and you have a depleted pick face location, or that bottom portion of your racking that's empty. And we want to be able to replenish that pick face location. And I want to assign someone to do that and tell them what they should be picking from that overstock location and bringing it to, and where they should be bringing it to. So giving that user ultimate direction of what exactly they need to do without them having that free flowing thought of maybe it should go here or maybe it can go here, so on. Now, the ultimate goal with tasks, assignments, and those work to lists is to be working with SYSPRO's missions and tasks. So as you see more and more over the next year or so, you'll see that coming out. All right. So one of the last things here from just an order side is the custom forms. Custom forms is a real key area to capture any additional data to a transaction. A common example, if you're, say, in a metal manufacturer and you have heat codes, that is a very common area to capture that heat code and bring it back into SYSPRO. So capturing additional information, bringing it back to SYSPRO to help make more effective decisions. Now, I also have a lot of other things from a pack and ship, working towards shipments and being able to print and generate those shipping documents or shipment information, such as the DIMS, the order information, and the delivery location, all of that being tied into the packing into a box and then shipping it out of your facility. And some of the WIP aspects as well of kiosks, being able to create different set locations within your warehouse in a kiosk fashion to make the tracking of labor easier for a user to access the solution, track what job that they're going to be working on, apply that labor, and post it back to SYSPRO in real time again. Now, if you want to take that one step further, there is riteTime, which is a true time tracking scheduling tool that is built with SYSPRO to be able to really get further into that ability to track how much time is being spent against what job and operation, while capturing additional information and really getting control of what actual time is being spent against those jobs and operations, while being able to start scheduling and being able to report against all of that information. And some of the cool things that we have coming for 2024 is going to be landed cost tracking and the riteSCAN native Android app. So an actual native app that you can install on your any device that you might have that's running Android, and provide you with that flexibility of how are we deploying this application. So Ryan, could you share some of the few customers that we have today that are using riteSCAN and how they went about using this application?
Thank you, Gary. Yep. So the first customer that I kind of want to talk a little bit is a customer called Yeti Cycles out of Colorado. They've been on riteSCAN for about 3 years now, and they were actually one of our very first riteSCAN 8 customers that we started out with in beta. And what we were really focusing on with their team was their WIP processes. They had some processes that were a little bit outside of the SYSPRO system and the norms of what they were doing. And what we were trying to do is figure out how to bring those processes back into core SYSPRO and riteSCAN functions. So the number one that we really focused on was their WIP picking process. That was what we were really keyed in on to solve first. And basically what they do is they have carts that are going to go around and pick parts for a single bike build or multiple bike builds. And they're going to go through and scan all of those items. And as you know, in the bike industry, a lot of those parts are very similar looking, even though they're different, right? So that's where the scanning was key, to make sure that they're grabbing the right tires, that they were grabbing the right shocks, the right cycle components. And the scanning validation was really the key to all of that. So we really focused on building a quick and easy grocery style scanning workflow for them in their WIP processes, to basically pick all the parts for a bike, put them on the cart, bring them to that assembly area for that build, and then go on to the next one. And they do this in a team function, basically, where they were able to actually release orders or release jobs to the floor to say, here's the jobs we're going to run, go run and pick these. And they would do that from a team perspective and use assignments to say, here's the 5 jobs I want you to go pick this morning. Here's the 5 jobs I want you to go pick this morning as well. So they were really able to nail that piece down. The other half that we focused on with them was their e-commerce side of the business, of being able to pick components for their e-commerce business and ship them out quickly. So that was on the order picking side of things, being able to scan those e-commerce orders, grab the t-shirts, grab the hats, grab the sweatshirts, and get those shipped out quickly. So another customer, Garrett, if you want to proceed to the next slide, which is a little bit different industry, more focused on the food and bev side of things, really focused around the pallet tracking functionalities that we brought forward with riteSCAN 8. And their whole business really revolved around lot traceability. So lot traceability and expiry dates with FIFO practices was their key to basically everything. So with their business, a lot of it is all driven from a pallet perspective. Now their pallets are typically one item, one lot with a quantity, but that's how they're moving all of their inventory. So they're not really dealing with mixed pallets per se in this sense, but they're really driving all of those processes from a FIFO perspective. So anything from staging materials into a staging area that are going to be issued into WIP, to staging materials that are going to be picked for a sales order to go out the door, all really rely around bin transfers. So transfers are really the key to all of their transactions before they actually do the job issue or before they actually do the order pick. It's all about transferring the items from one area to another to stage those up and prepare them for the next process. So they very heavily rely on sorting those lot numbers within their system to make sure they're grabbing the first lot to expire, being able to find ways to more quickly show them which lot they should be moving and which lot they should be moving to. So one of the other projects that they've heavily worked on is the task management and driving those processes from a task perspective so that the user isn't having to choose which lot they should be moving. So one of our customers out of SA actually worked with the partner to build a whole logic on how they select which lot number that they want to be picking and moving it to and where they want to move it to. So their whole process revolved around tasks from a WIP staging perspective and a sales order picking perspective, even though the actual transactions they were always doing were bin transfers or warehouse transfers. They were staging it up for that next process flow, whether it was to issue it into WIP, and everything was driven from a FIFO perspective. And the system was actually able to direct those users of, go pick this lot from this location, and here's how many I want you to pick. And then that ties directly to the actual bin transfer transaction that happens through riteSCAN and SYSPRO. So it kind of gives them the best of both worlds. The other thing that this customer really heavily used with riteSCAN as well as sort of check gates within their processes was a new feature called forms in riteSCAN. Basically, what forms were allowing them to do was to build a set of questions or simple questions to capture data on the back end of a transaction to help them go through some of those check gates. So basically, for example, when they were going through the PO receiving process, when they receive a line, they're able to ask specific questions about that PO line to make sure they ask the temperature, the truck number, did it pass? Was the packaging on that good? Yes or no? Because they were doing these all through paper processes to basically capture these forms, but weren't doing anything with that data other than passing it along. This was a way for them to basically say, all right, we're doing the PO receipt transaction. Let's capture this extra data so we have it in the system for reporting purposes. So those are just a few examples of how some of the customers have tied those new functionalities into what they're actually doing on a day-to-day basis to take it beyond maybe just the basics of barcode scanning that we talk about every day. So.
Perfect. No, it's really interesting. And Ryan, what would be like a common example of them reporting against it? How would they go about doing that?
Yeah, so a couple of things with the reporting side. On the forms reporting, basically, these customers were doing validation for pass fails. So they were able to actually set up a custom field that said, if I enter this, it's going to pass. If I enter this, it's going to fail. And really what they cared about mostly from a reporting standpoint is they were building their reports off of the fails, right? So they wanted to know that, hey, these failed runs are going into this category that were getting passed off to another quality department to do their next steps of however they were going to mitigate some of those things. So that was how they were really utilizing the reporting side on the forms, was to take those fail results and then go and do those next steps that they actually had to do, but in a more simple fashion than a full QMS type system.
Very nice, very nice. All right, perfect. Well, hopefully we'll be able to demonstrate some of those examples to you here. So what we're going to do is we're going to transition a little bit now over to a riteSCAN demonstration to cover some of the core processes and some of the nice to have new features that riteSCAN is going to provide to you. So we'll be able to see my riteSCAN screen come up here, and we'll jump into the demonstration. All right. So just to keep a few things just to note on this screen, and as I go through the demonstration, we spoke a little bit earlier about how everything is going to be real time. So one of the big things that you'll know as I go through the demonstration is there's always going to be feedback to the user on when they're doing something correct or not, whether if that's a green success message, a red error message, or a white warning message, a dialogue, just to help guide a user through on what they do. So proving that real-time validation and feedback that they are doing what they are supposed to do. Now, as you can see, that riteSCAN here is running in just a browser. So being that riteSCAN is web-based, it allows for that very easy deployment to the variety of different devices or workflows that you might have out there on any given facility, whether if that's PO receiving on a desktop, if that's going to be bin transfers on a handheld device, or if it's going to be labor collection on a tablet. It will allow for that easy, streamlined reporting and deployment. Now, the best thing about that deployment is through this browser-based system is that there's no longer updates of clients that you have to go through, where if you had that pre-existing system with a old client and you had to update it every single time you updated the server side, that's a thing of the past. So what we're going to do here is we're going to log in, and we're going to log in with the same credentials that I would use to log into SYSPRO. Again, it's still not consuming a SYSPRO concurrent user seat, but it's just allowing me to leverage the security of SYSPRO and the settings of SYSPRO. So really flowing from the top down of your ERP through to your WMS solution. So I'll log in here, and it's going to bring us just to our home screen. That's going to provide us with some additional information just to get a sense of what's happening this week or within the last few days of this user or this company. Just additional information to help you make more effective and informed decisions. So we'll follow the flow of material as we go through here today, and we'll cover some of the key areas. So to start, I'm going to go to my nav menu here on the left-hand side, and we're going to select the pick and receive dropdown. So I need to do some PO receiving. I need to receive in raw material goods before I can do any of the following phases. So we're going to start by selecting PO receipt. And this is one that is commonly done at a desktop location. The docks are close to a desk that's there, and it's easy deployment without having to purchase that handheld while using a barcode wedge scanner to perform that transaction. So again, it's just speaking to how you can deploy it in those different areas. Now, of course, it's agnostic, so I can show it to you on your handheld device, which you will see as we go through today. Now, I have a couple POs here. Now, one of the really cool new features that's actually been released within riteSCAN is the ability to receive multiple POs at the same time. So I could select multiple POs, and that's going to really create a batch. You could use this if you have the scenario of I have a single truck that has multiple POs on it, but line item 1 could be for PO 1 at the front of the door, and that line item 2 for PO 1 is at the back of the truck. So I want to be able to just receive it all in one fell swoop and bring it back into SYSPRO, bring it all into our facility and hold it into its inventory location, and then go through that natural process of bringing it all in. But for today's example, we're just going to stick with one PO. So we'll start the receiving process here. So now on this given purchase order, we have 2 line items that we need to go through and receive. So you can do a variety of different methods of entry. And what I mean by that is you could either scan a barcode if it's coming from your supplier. You could manually select the line item out of the list, or you could, in fact, type in the stock code that you are receiving in. The goal is to get to as much scanning as possible because that's where your accuracy and your efficiency comes from. But again, PO receiving is the most common place in any area to apply your created labels. So we'll go through this process here. I'm going to actually scan a barcode for them. So we're going to scan our item as it comes in off that truck, and it's going to bring up my dialog for me to apply any additional information, such as our quantity, our note, reference. If we have a bin location, I have to apply my bin location, supplier note, the manufacturing date, which this is a custom form. This is being brought from SYSPRO into riteSCAN for me to apply any additional information. So I could apply my manufacturing date, which was 12/4/2023. And we're going into the future here, but that's all right. Now, as Ryan spoke a little bit about those forms, here's an example. So for this specific line item, I do want to capture that additional data. So it could be as simple as size, weight, and color, or it can get to as complex as some of that additional information. Does it pass this? Yes or no? So for me, I'm just going to go through and apply some of that extra data. So we're going to say it is going to be 100. The weight is going to be 10 pounds, and its color is yellow. So you're able to apply that additional information to then report against later and make that decision against it. So we'll go through another line item here and receive this inventory in. So this one I'm going to manually select because I didn't have a barcode for this given product. So again, I go through that same information, apply it, and I can choose to make these fields optional or required if I need to. I'll hit save. Again, I can go through my form, apply its information, capture that so we know what it is, and now it's ready to be posted into SYSPRO. GRNs are generated, and I can hit OK. Again, constant feedback to me as a user that what we did was correct and is accepted by the ERP system of SYSPRO. So some of those key areas that you could leverage PO receiving in as well. So now, as we go back, I could either go back and receive in that next PO, but I do just want to view what kind of inventory do we have. So one of the methods of this is giving that visibility also to that end user of what and where does our inventory exist. And for this, I'm going to actually switch over to our handheld device because that's where the next few processes are commonly done. So I'm going to go to my inventory drop down in the nav menu, and I'm going to just select my stock items query. So I'm going to have a large list of all the different stock codes or SKUs or part numbers that I have within this system. And I'll be able to do a basic search against it, whether if, again, I scan a barcode, select it from the list, or even use the predictive search that it has. Say I only know so many characters, but I want to type that in. So I go through, I'll select my stock code that I'm going to look at. I can scan it, and this is then going to show me my warehouse values of how much of this item do we actually have in a given location. So I can look, review, wow, I've got a lot in my northern warehouse. Okay, that's a lot of inventory. We probably should get some of that out. But again, instead of me as the end user having to call that inventory control person or that customer service rep of, okay, I'm at the shelf, how much do we have? There's nothing here. Where else does this exist? They all have that information readily available to them. And that's not the warehouse. That could be the bins that it exists in if you're a multiple bin company within SYSPRO. And if you wanted to use riteSCAN's additional module called pallet tracking, you'll also be able to see the granularity of what pallet, bin, and warehouse location that this product exists in. Now, we didn't cover pallets a whole lot, but what pallets does allow you to do is track via a unique identifier a group of product on that unique identifier and move it throughout all of the different riteSCAN and /SYSPRO processes of purchase order receipts, stock takes, cycle counts, transfers, production of issue and receiving, and finally back to your sales order picking. So by the use of that one unique identifier. Then you also have just the general SYSPRO details. Again, more information to help make more informed decisions. All right. So now moving on to some of the last inventory things that we're going to look at here is just the stock take. This is one that's, we see a lot of time savings on of how you go about your inventory counts. So I can go through and apply my warehouse that this count is happening in, the bin location that the count's happening in. And a lot of this is done where I will scan or manually enter. It all depends on what levels of barcoding you have within your facility and how it helps you get to that ability to use those barcodes. So you apply your stock code. Now, the best thing with riteSCAN is that it knows that if that stock code is, say, a lot traceable item or a serialized item. So if I hit enter here on this serialized stock code, you're going to see a serial field that has to be applied. So it's always reading your SYSPRO environment of what does your inventory look like. And if it doesn't require that, it's not going to show you that field. So it's less confusion on the end user's part. So we can apply our information, we apply our quantity of what we're counting here, and we continue going through that process of selecting our items. And even if I don't have something to scan, there's always different methods of getting to that information, whether if it's you typing it in, using and leveraging a query to do so, So there's a wide variety of different methodologies here to make sure that you are getting the most out of the system. So you can post your transaction and you get your post successful. This is one that we see a lot of success with customers, is even their first physical inventory with riteSCAN is just simply the time savings of not having to use either paper pick tickets anymore, of writing it down on a ticket and handing it in to a clerk to enter that then into SYSPRO. This is all going directly back to SYSPRO's stock take system. All right, so now we've counted inventory, we've seen how much we have, we've received inventory in. Now we're going to move over to the inventory and production side. So we want to be able to start the issuing of our material and then the receiving of that finished good material. So we're going to go down to our work in progress here. And we're going to see a few different modules to issue material, whether if you're doing a specific issue, a kit issue, you have both options. And if you even need to, you can backflush. So covering all of those core functions that you'll see in any given organization. So here I can see actually the list of jobs that might be assigned to me if I am using that batch process. So we can go and see, all right, what's going to be a good job for us to work on? I've got my 1130. And now this will show me the list of my bill of materials that need to be entered. And I can go through and properly scan those items of selecting my B111, apply that quantity, any additional information that's required in post. This is one of those areas that I really preach as I physically do this process, I want to systematically do this process. As soon as I pull that inventory off the shelf and move it from its location, I want to systematically do that. So that way you're always maintaining that updated inventory accuracy of those locations and what's being brought into your production. So we'll go through and do that one more time with another stock code here. Now this one is a multiple bin stock code, or multiple bin warehouse. So I see that I have to apply my quantity, but I also have to apply the bin location that I'm pulling this product from. So it's again speaking to riteSCAN knows based off of the inventory and based off of the location of what additional information needs to be provided to perform it. So I apply my bin location and then I post. And now it allows the rest for me to go through that same process of issuing and pulling my material. All right, so now as I go through, we're going to quickly go through and just receipt our finished goods. So we have all of our materials say they've been allocated to this specific job. And now we need to ultimately receipt that finished good into inventory so that we can sell it. So we're going to take our 1130 here, apply that quantity that's being received into its given inventory location. Can mark this complete saying, yep, we're meeting our required quantity, and we can post. So once I post, again, there's that key post successful message. So always providing feedback to me as the user that I did something correct. Now here's another common area for us to be printing our labels. So providing what information do I want on that label, such as the stock code, the description of that stock code, maybe the job number and quantity is what's important to your organization. There's a lot of information that you can capture for those labels, just finding what's really important for that transaction. So now we've got a finished good inventory that's ready to be sold to our customer. Now I'm going to switch back out of this and we're going to go to my order picking processes. Now, order picking within riteSCAN is probably the most diverse and configurable module that we have today, which will allow you to go through and do a variety of different methodology, whether if it's you're picking out a ship, picking out a back order, reserves unallocated, or even dispatch notes, really, again, encompassing all of those different SYSPRO processes. Now, one thing that we're going to do today is we're actually going to go through that batch process. So we're going to go into what we call the order manager. And the order manager is that tool to allow the assignment of sales orders to a given employer group of employees to go through and pick based off certain criteria. Now, a lot of times I see this of, again, moving away from that printed pick slip that you might be printing out of SYSPRO today. and that you use as your assignment process. Now this is going to say, okay, if it's assigned to this user, the user will go to their device, select their assigned sales order, and pick it from there, and then allow riteSCAN to move any of the statuses of that sales order. So here I have two sales orders that we're going to go through and use this for. I'm going to check 1650. That's one sales order. So I'm that customer service rep that is assigning who should be picking these orders. I see this looks good. Here's the line item. Fantastic. 1649 is also for the same customer, and they're both ready at the same time. So we may as well be able to ship them both at that same time and pick them. So we're going to select then by using these check boxes here. And then I'm going to create my pick list. Now this pick list will allow me to do a few different things. It'll give me an batch ID, a description that I can provide of what are we doing here. So it could be webinar, it could be picking, it could be whatever you choose or deem necessary in that field. I can then assign my user of who is picking it. So we're going to assign it to Garrett. I'm going to then choose a priority for this. So we do have different levels of priority. So if it's standard priority or even expedited, say this has to get out today because we have that scenario of customer called in and they urgently need this part for the project that they're working on. So we're going to expedite this, and that's going to then go to the top of my list. And then I can even provide an expected pick date. Let's say I need this out today for these 3 line items. So we're going to hit save. Pick list is created, and now it's been assigned to that user to go through and do. Now you can always edit these after the fact, add lines to it, remove lines from it. You have that ability, but we're going to go through and finally pick that sales order. So we can see our list here of different sales orders that we have, and I can select my pick list ID. As you can see, it has that yellow pill of it's due or overdue, and I can then see my line items. So now I'm going to switch this back to my handheld device here, which is running on a Zebra MC9300, which is a common device that we see in a lot of the riteSCAN deployments. And now I see those 3 line items that I have to go through and pick to fulfill these 2 different sales orders. So now you see that little blue box with the bin location that it's suggesting me to go to. Again, that simplified directed picking of where do I need to go to pull this product and how much I need to pull. So now as a user, I'd go through and look at my device. Where do I need to go? Find my stock code, and I'm going to start scanning my stock codes. So if I scan, let's say I scan my item, and I scan something that's incorrectly. This is where that scanning becomes extremely important. It gave me that red error message. So let me just do that for us one more time. Stock code B111 is not found on this order, right? So if I do scan something that's incorrect, I don't want to accidentally pick it and continue moving on. So again, providing me with that feedback. So now when I do scan the correct stock code for this order, it's going to give me that dialog to apply the quantity that I'm picking and allow me to continue through that process of picking the item and identifying it. Now, here's just another example of those errors. So custom forms are fun and all, but they do provide you with some additional information. So that would be an example of going through and picking. So we're going to pick this one more time here. We're going to select our item, apply our quantity, and we will then complete this order. Now, here's an example of a warning message in riteSCAN. So for the scenario that you had not enough inventory to fulfill the entirety of the order, and do you allow the underpicking or back ordering? This is just that example of a warning message to stop and make a user think, okay, are we supposed to do this or not? Can I do this or not? Do I have to ask someone to do this? So we're going to hit yes just to continue through the completion of this order. All right. Okay, so that is the general walkthrough of the majority of the core modules that you'd be using in riteSCAN. Now, to really tie this all together is how do we view, again, the visibility of what did these users do? So you all have a variety of different modules or ways to do that within riteSCAN. whether if that's standard WIP overviews or order overviews, or if you really wanted to drill into riteSCAN's reporting. So we'll start with the order overview. This is one tool just to be able to get a sense of what happened to a given order and what state is it ultimately in. Is it complete? Is it picking? Is it packing? All of the different flows that product or order might go through. So I'm going to take that 1650 sales order that we created into that batch. And we're going to see exactly what picks happened against it and their quantities. I'll be able to then, more importantly, over here, see the status history of who did it, what time did we start, what time did it end, and again, when was it completed and by what user. So having that full visibility into who did what at what day and what time. Now, if you really wanted to take this reporting even further, riteSCAN does have its own reporting utility. So I can select my reports, and reporting is quite endless. You can really use this to capture a large variety of different information, such as your transfers, what transfers happened today, your material issues, what material issues happened today. So being able to clearly identify what happened. So if I look at sales orders picked by user, I'll hit run, and here's the sales orders that happened by this user on this given date. So just giving you that flexibility to understand exactly what happened. So that's the majority of what we have from today's demonstration within riteSCAN. Again, always happy to take the time to show you more or more specified process that is pertaining to you. But we'll take it back over to riteSCAN's webinar now. And we're going to really, at this time, we're going to open it up to Q&A. So any questions that you have, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll be able to get those answered for you as we go.
Thank you, Garrett. I appreciate the demo. Hopefully everyone was able to see quite a few things in riteSCAN and some of the differences if you've seen it in the past, and how it looks differently as well with riteSCAN 8 and some of the new features. So let's see here. Hey, Garrett, so one of the questions, let me just interpret this. I think that they're asking is, can I use the barcodes that I actually receive from a supplier to scan in riteSCAN?
Yeah, you can. There's a variety of different ways from a setup perspective that you can do that. So the first key is identify what content is in that barcode that's coming from your supplier. A lot of times it's going to be, say, that supplier's part number, stock code, or SKU, or UPC. So you want to do it one of a few different ways. One that's common is using the alternate key field in SYSPRO to apply that supplier's UPC. Then riteSCAN has a really cool setting to allow you to leverage the alternate key fields or even customer cross-references, supplier cross-references, to be able to pull that stock item and leverage that customer or supplier's existing label, so you internally don't have to print your own.
Perfect, thank you. One of the other questions that came in, which I can take half of this if you want, or you can answer the whole thing. Can riteSCAN generate the packing list in BOL to go with a shipment?
Go ahead, you take it.
No worries. So shipping has been something we've actually been working quite heavily on over the last year, basically. So in terms of the packing list, yes, you can generate that packing list in riteSCAN based on your pack items and how you go about that pack process for your different items. We're actually just hoping to finish this out by year end to actually have our ability to generate a BOL document directly from riteSCAN. Now, there are different ways that you could utilize, like Bartender or some other solutions where riteSCAN feeds all the data to a system that actually prints that BOL, or that BOL system, whether it's Crystal or something along those lines, pulls in data. But we are working to finish that BOL piece out by year end as well, where we can actually print the document directly out of riteSCAN. So another question, Garrett, this one I think you can take. Yeah, sorry, that one was a little bit more of it in the flux. Is can riteSCAN print the barcode labels actually?
So riteSCAN doesn't do the true printing of the label, but it works with solutions like Bartender or Nice Label. Those are the two most common or standard solutions in the SYSPRO space. And what riteSCAN will do with conjunction of Bartender is riteSCAN is responsible for providing Bartender with the data that's being printed. So take your stock code from a transaction, your PO number, the quantity, lot, serial, if that's important to your organization. riteSCAN will pull that data from the transaction, provide it to Bartender, where Bartender or Nice Label maintains the designed label format that you have created, and then the automation. So taking the design with the information, automating it to that label print or out there on the floor, and it will print in real time. So as soon as I get a print confirmation in riteSCAN, I'll hear my printer turn on and print out that label with the specified information.
Perfect. One more question that came in here. You'll love this one. This is always one of the more challenging ones. How long does it take to implement riteSCAN?
Man, that's a great question. It always is a good one. It really depends on what you're implementing. You know, at the end of the day, you have to look at the scope that you're going to implement is probably the best way to look at it. Is, you know, if you're doing purchase order receipts and that's the only thing you want to leverage riteSCAN for, which is a possibility, you can be up and running within, you know, a couple weeks after some serious testing. And now if you're looking for the full-fledged solution, you're really looking at that 6 to 8 week timeline. Now, the biggest thing is, you know, RiteSoft, if RiteSoft's helping with the implementation, we're always willing to move as fast as you want to move. So making sure that we just put a good project plan in place, and being that riteSCAN is that standard plug and play out of the box solution, it does allow for that fast and easy installation, config, and ultimate deployment, but it's just the elapsed time that it takes to ultimately get to that go live. So again, all it depends on how much you want to implement and how fast. So we're here to help you with that.
So it looks like that should be all the questions, but feel free if anybody has other questions that they want to follow up with or just want to directly have a conversation, please feel free to reach out to us anytime. And I think we appreciate everybody joining us for the webinar today. And Garrett, thank you for the demonstration and presenting, and everyone have a great day.
Yeah, thank you to BT Partners as well. It's always a pleasure to work with them, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.